Hey guys, welcome back to the Essex Rotary channel, and in this week's video we've got a top 5 for you. Our top 5 things that we'd recommend you change if you've just bought a new rotary vehicle. So you've just bought yourself a brand new, or at least a new, rotary engine vehicle, be it RX-8 or RX-7. I'm going to give you the top 5 things that in my opinion are a must to at least check, and some of them are a definite change if you've just bought a car and you've got no history on it. Number 1, and the most important in my opinion, is engine oil and filter. We're going to roll this into one single item because they should both be changed together. Generally it's important firstly to know what engine oil's in the car. So doing an engine oil and filter change soon after you've got the car is a good idea because you know what's in it. And also it's going to help start cleaning your oil up if the previous person hasn't been servicing it as they should have done. I'm not going to go into specifics with regards to which oil or filter. I think it's up there. I'll put some links somewhere there. I'll put some links in the cards to some of the more specific videos we've done regarding some of these articles or items like engine oil. We haven't really done one on filters, but I suppose you could roll it into one. I'll stick some links up there. But yeah, it's a good idea to make sure you know what oil's in the car and when it was put in, so you've got a good jumping off point for when you're going to be moving forward with servicing your car as you go. I do this all the time, but try and make sure your engine oil and filter changes at 3,000 to 6,000 mile intervals, or 3 to 6 months. If you're doing 1,000 mile a year in your vintage RX-7, still probably a good idea to do it at maybe 500 miles. Keeps your oil clean, and clean oil, it means you've got a happy engine. Number 2. Number 2 on the list for me would be spark plugs. Some of them can be quite expensive, like the RX-8 spark plugs. Some of the older stuff, like say for the second or first generation RX-7s, are a lot more affordable. But it's still a good idea to make sure you've at least removed the plugs and check the condition of them. Check the, I'll see if I can stick a picture here, but check the bottom of the plugs so they're working in to make sure they're not carbon coated, coked up, they're not badly worn. The positive electrode, so that's the one that goes down the middle, is looking good, it's not burnt away. The ground electrode or ground strap, if it's got one, is again looking good. And in some cases, if you've got some of the racier plugs, that the gap on the plug is within spec. On the top of the plug, up here, you also want to check, make sure there's, firstly that it's there, it's not broken, like we have seen with some spark plugs, but also you want to check to make sure that the top of the plug, or what we normally refer to as the plug cap, that the plug cap is not corroded. If it is, if the bottom section of the plug or the working end is in good shape, you can sometimes get away with a little bit of sandpaper to clean any corrosion off of it. Get that corrosion off and give yourself a good connection. I'm going to call this one a 2.5, or we could call it a 3. But on the same subject of spark plugs, HT leads. I see lots of cars, especially some of the older RX-7s, which have some real bad quality HT leads on them. If the boots are slack, if the lead is really thin, or there's some cheap nasties fitted on there, your car's really going to benefit from a good set of HT leads. Some of the brands which, if you've got them on the car, you should be good with, but it's still worth checking to make sure that you've got good positive connections on stuff like the spark plug caps and the coil or distributor ends. So some of the brands will be Magnacore, even the Electrosport 80 or KV85 HT leads. Or alternatively, our favourites, which are the MSD Superconductor 8.5mm HT leads. MSD also do a slightly smaller lead, which I believe they call the Street Fire lead. We don't tend to supply them at the shop, but I have seen them occasionally on cars. You've got other brands like Taylor, I suppose Taylor's the only other one. Morosso is the other one that springs to mind. They're pretty decent leads. You don't tend to see the Taylor or Morosso ones over here very often. Although the Morosso leads are bundled in the old school Blackadder racing ignition kits, because it was the only option that was available in blue at the time. So if you've got Morosso leads, you should be sealed. From the ignition side, coils, I'm not going to go into those, but coils, if you've got an RX-8, this is not a number 3 by the way, or 4, but coils, if you've got a RX-8 or another thing that you might want to check, I think we've got a video on that. If not, future video coming up. Engine air filters, whether they are a renew or a replaceable filter like the factory style, or they're an aftermarket like if it sits in the standard airbox like a K&N or HKS filter. Obviously, if you've got replaceable sort of mushroom filters like some of the RX-7s would have had, it's a good idea to check the condition. Some of the filters like the HKS filters, for instance, have a replaceable foam element in them. It's important to make sure that the running the car is in good shape. And if it's not, buy yourself a new sponge, a genuine one obviously, and get it changed. From there, staying on the subject of filters, if your car has a replaceable fuel filter, regardless of if the previous owner said he's changed it, get that filter changed. So you're looking, for instance, on the, where are we? On the FB, the filter's under the back, just in front of the tank, right near the pump. On the FC, it's forward in the engine bay, down by the left-hand side chassis rail. Just stick your head down there and you'll see it. FD's probably the fun one because it's up over the diff, but again that's a replaceable filter. On the RX-8, sadly, Mazda chose to incorporate that filter in the pump assembly. Cheers, Mazda. Which means that it's not meant to be changed, but we have seen filters which have become clogged and it's affected the performance of the vehicle. So, yeah, you might want to look at doing that. In the UK, we've got a recall on some of the pump filters, so before you go buying a new pump, phone your dealer and find out if they'll replace it. Also, do some checking on the internet because it's a good idea to make sure that the dealer you're going to take it to does a good job, and they're not going to leave pump seals and stuff open without. Well, they're not going to replace the pump seals. Let me try that again. They're going to replace the pump seals for the pump and not forget to put them in like the C1 dealer do. We shall remain nameless. Yeah, we had a customer bring a car in and the dealer had done the recall and not actually put the seals back in, so it was spewing fuel every day. Cheers, Mazda. Yeah, on that subject, I'll be back in a minute because I've just got to stop. There we go. Stop over. So, I suppose the last one's number 5. Before we get to some oddball mentions, got chassis specifics, I suppose. Yeah, number 5. Number 5 would be brake fluid. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily put number 5 brake fluid as a priority. In my opinion, brake fluid can seriously hamper the operation of your brakes if there's air left in it, or if there's air in it. Moist plus, if there is an air in it and there's a lot of moisture, it can build up if left unchecked and essentially start corroding your brake lines, brake calipers and all the various other stuff from the inside out, which then will possibly lead to jammed brake calipers, warped brake discs. You get the picture. It's one of them things which, depending on the kind of brake fluid you're using, will have different service intervals. So for instance, we tend to like .5.1 at the workshop. Well, we do like .5.1 at the workshop. As a result, we generally recommend this changed every 2 years. If you're doing track days, I'd recommend it's done at least yearly. In most cases, most of us will tend to bleed a bit through the system before each track day, just to make sure there's clean fluid there. While you're at it, don't forget the clutch fluid if you have if your reservoir for the clutch master cylinder is shared. So also remember to bleed some fluid through the clutch. Slave cylinder, not the clutch. You'll ruin it. But yeah, essentially make sure you've got good clean brake fluid. If you're using, back to the DOT stuff, if you're using DOT 4, the recommended interval is 3 years, I think, but I'd still change it at 2. It's a good idea to probably make sure you've got good brake fluid, even if you're changing it out more frequently. And on a slight side note, brake fluid can be confusing. Essentially, the compatible brake fluids that you could use with the vehicle, or the vehicles, would be DOT 3, DOT 4 and DOT 5.1. Now DOT 5.1 is where the confusion comes in, because there's also a DOT 5. DOT 5 is an absolute no-no in a rotary vehicle, or any of the modern stuff, even going back to like the FB or SI. So even you generally, if your manual says, for instance, on an FB says use DOT 3, DOT 4 will be backwards compatible with it. The same with DOT 5.1, you'll be able to use that in the system. Obviously, if your manual, like the RX-8 for argument's sake, says use DOT 4, you can still use DOT 5.1.
Don't use DOT 5
at all. Yes, not designed for our brake systems. So with that said, yeah, brake fluid, like I say, is an important one. You definitely want to make sure that's changed. Obviously the other serviceable bits through the various specific vehicles, diff oil, gearbox oil, you know, they've got a longer service interval, and I'd probably say it's a good idea to check the levels, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're the absolute must if you're looking at the 5 essential things to start with, or 6 if you include the leads. But yeah, more specific mentions I'd just like to include: if you've got an FB or an early Series 4 FC, distributor cap, rotor arm, at least check the condition of them. They're relatively inexpensive, especially considering like how expensive coils are for later models. And it's not like you don't need coils on those vehicles, but you'd be amazed the difference that a replacement dizzy cap and rotor arm will have on one of those cars if it's worn. And I've seen plenty of them which the car sounds like it runs alright. There's a big massive gap where they've arced out over the years, and the a replacement makes a big difference. There was another subject there, thinking of it. Oh yeah, old school car, tune up. Not things to change, but it's still, if you've just got the car, it's still worth checking that your ignition timing, idle mixtures, blah 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 blah, are all in good shape. Generally, if you've got the tools, it's not going to cost you anything other than a little bit of time. So with that said, guys, I think we've pretty much covered the top 5 or possibly 6. Yeah, I've got 3 hands, by the way. But the top 5 or 6 things that you will want to check or change. Some of them are definite, some of them are optional. But you want to check or change if you've just bought an RX-7 or an RX-8 or an RX-5 or 3 if you're lucky enough to get hold of one. Or Cosmo. But yeah, they're pretty much, the majority of them are pretty universal. To close out, you can check us out at essexrotary.co.uk, where you'll find a crap ton of information, technical articles and whatnot. You're obviously already on our YouTube channel. The main website, which obviously I've just mentioned, but our store, you'll be able to find at essexrotarystore.com. There you will find a whole host of parts, which include most of the stuff I've mentioned. So that's essexrotarystore.com. You find us on Facebook at Essex Rotary Specialists, and you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram, which is at Essex Rotary. So yeah, we hope you found this video of use, especially if you've just bought a car. If you're looking to buy it, it's one of them things which you might want to take into consideration or factor in the cost when you are when you pick it up. That's going to be a cost that you're going to want to add to it. I'm running out of things to say here, even though I'm pretty much close the video out. But yeah, if the video was useful to you guys, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and smash that like button down there, along with the oh, that thumbs up is the like button, isn't it? It's been a while since I've done one of these random Braps. But yeah, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and stick some comments down there if you've got any questions, and we're happy to answer them. So yeah, with that all said, guys, we will catch you in the next episode. Just bought yourself a brand new Brapmobile. Don't know what that was. Let's try again, shall we? So you've just bought yourself a brand new Brapmobile Rotary car. That's terrible. So you've just bought yourself